Hey, everybody, welcome back and thanks for listening. So, on my podcast, a lot of times I talk about women's health and issues that women go through. And it's not completely geared towards that, but I really haven't been able to talk a lot about men's health. And that's something that I really want to talk about today. Obviously, I'm not a man, so I don't really have that insight the same as men do. So I really wanted to bring somebody on that has a lot of insight on that. And he actually is a fellow podcaster. His podcast is the Modified Gentleman Podcast. His name is Larry Jackson. Larry, how are you?
Hey, I'm pretty good. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, absolutely. So you are a podcast host as well, and you have this great podcast. I have listened to some episodes, and you really dive into men's health, men's wellness, issues that men go through. And I really want to talk to you about that today. So kind of tell me a little bit about you and your background.
Okay, well, for me, I run this podcast called The Modified Gentleman that focuses on men's mental health and advocacy for that from a masculine perspective.
Yeah.
And I got into that because just growing up through life, I went through a lot of those types of traumas that we have in our environment. And we grow up taking those and carrying those traumas with us in our adult life. And it plays a huge part between mentorship, guidance, and direction.
Yeah.
Now, for me, when I was growing up, I didn't have a lot of proper masculine guidance and mentorship. And so that played a part into a lot of bad decisions, bad behavior, toxicity, things like that. So out of taking that from my background as a kid and growing up through that and learning about it, and I developed this concept called the Modified Gentleman, is putting in the work of doing the healing, of learning how to, beat those bad behaviors and how to stop that toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
And it's running rampant, and I see it a lot.
Yeah.
One of the main things that really got me started in doing this was just seeing how toxic masculinity is become the norm between men, just in men in general.
And what do you mean by toxic masculinity?
Oh, that's a deep one. But just the way that we see life, and it's not just how we handle our relationships, but personal and professional as well. We look at things as kind of like a superiority complex.
Okay.
And we don't get a chance to really dive into things because we cut it off and we say, oh, well, it's just how men do things.
Yeah.
And it cuts us off emotionally. And so we don't have that mental connection, that emotional connection that gives us a different perspective. And I grew up with that, just going up everyday life, being in a harsh environment and learning how to just survive. Mm-hmm. And I brought a lot of that with me into my adult life.
Yeah.
And then just looking back at a lot of bad decisions that I did and just being honest, just being honest with yourself. That's just step one. And once you do that, you can start healing. And so that's a lot of about what the Modified Gentleman's concept is completely about.
I think that is a very self-aware, mature thing that a lot of people struggle with, and it's hard to be self-aware in that way. Women are the same way, but there's a lot of people talking about it for women.
Yes.
And I don't think
that's a key.
Yeah, I don't think there's as many people talking about it for men. So when you talk about being able to recognize that within yourself, how were you able to get there? How did you take those steps to actually do that? Is there anything that happened that made that click for you?
Okay. For men, the one thing that once you start becoming self-aware, you start taking notice of the collateral damage.
Yeah.
You start taking notice of the people that are close to you that you're hurting because of your bad behaviors, because of whatever toxic masculine or unresolved traumas that you have. And then once you hurt someone that you really care about, that's when you realize, okay, there's something about me that I need to fix. There's something broken about me that I need to fix. And when you become self-aware, then you realize, okay, I need to do something that's going to change my behavior for a better outlook of myself. That comes in many forms. For me, it was through failed marriages or through bad relationships or misconnections with your kids, a lot of those things, it plays a part because you realize that out of all of that, you are the common denominator. And then you realize, okay, it's not everything else.
Right.
It's what's going on inside me.
Right. And I was going to say that, how do you get to the point where you're not just, because a lot of people do it where they're just blame. It's
Yes.
everybody else,
Yes.
you know, it's everybody
Yes.
else. But yeah, I think it's a common denominator type of thing. And if you really look at yourself harshly look at yourself and go, wait a minute, you know, maybe there were some things that were the other person's fault. However, what am I doing that's contributing to these things? Or what am I doing to contribute to, you know, even picking these types of people or allowing these people in my life? What is going on with me and I think that, you know, the only thing we can control is ourselves.
Right.
So what do you think are the common things that men grow up with that contribute to that?
Well, some of the common things that I've witnessed, that I've experienced, is that men, we take a lot and we don't give back a lot. Mm-hmm. It's not equal. The ratio is off. And we look at things as we're kind of expected to have it because we're men, because, you know, we're expected to be leaders of the household too. Mm-hmm. And so that's also societal pressure. That's the societal burden that's put on us. I mean, women have them too. Mm-hmm. We both do. It's a gender role type of thing. Mm-hmm. But men trying to have that societal burden that we have, but we lack the emotional connection and the mental connection that we never fully see the depth of it. Mm-hmm. And that's where we can hurt someone, but since we're cut off emotionally, we don't feel it, you know, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things.
Do you think that as a society, we're getting better though, with helping boys as they're younger or men recognize their feelings and allow men to be more emotional? Because people talk about that.
They do. They really do. But at the moment, it's getting awareness now.
Yeah.
It is now. Back then, no, not.
Right.
And I'll be honest with you, the one reason why it's getting awareness now is because of women. Because women have their healing, their hurting, their suffering up in the forefront. And then we look at it as men as, okay, a lot of us are causing that hurt. We're causing that uncomfortable feeling with women. And whether it be in relationships or, you know, just family or societal burdens, whether it's in the workplace, because, you know, just professionalism, men and women kind of conflict with each other. They kind of battle with each other for just positions and equality. That's what I want to say, equality. And so we try to, men are just now starting to play catch up to where they realized, okay, you know, there are a lot of things that I need to take into account and have some responsibility for. And we see that now. We see that happening. And a lot with me, when I realized it, is the fact that I looked at a lot of relationship gurus, and there are a lot of male relationship gurus that are helping women. Mm-hmm. And I look at that and I'm like, I mean, that's good. I don't have anything bad about that.
But that's interesting.
But I look at it as, okay, put that energy into your fellow man to heal that man, so he doesn't, you know, hurt women or carry on toxic masculinity. Because if the men are out there trying to help women heal, that's just a Band-Aid, and we're only applying, you know, treatment but not prevention.
Yeah.
And so that's where I want to step in and bring in a type of awareness to where we can heal and start moving forward together instead of one step forward, two steps back.
Yeah. You know, and I almost feel like that's almost like a father figure, big brother type position. Because
that's the most important part.
Because here's the thing too. We always talk about fathers in a family, and we always say that they're role models for girls on how men treat women. But honestly, too, fathers are also a role model for men on how to treat women as well, and how to treat each other. You know, you see men fathers with good relationships with other men. You see them with good relationships with their daughters or their wives or, you know,
Right.
family members. And boys can grow up seeing that as, you know, this is how I need to, this is, I mean, really, it's how a father treats their mother.
Right. Okay. So this is, I can look at that in a two-part situation. The first part is that, okay, it was the best thing is for a child to have both parents, of course, you know, so they get both perspectives. However, it's best to have, you know, positive role models in both positions.
Yes.
A woman, a single woman raising a child, raising a male, raising a boy, it happens a lot, and it's not impossible. I grew up in a single parent home, me and my mom. And my mom did the best she could, did everything she could to, you know, make sure I was respectable. I was respectful to my elders. I handled my responsibilities, did everything I was supposed to do. But my mother could not teach me how to be a proper boyfriend to my girlfriend. Yeah. My mom could not teach me how to be a husband to my wife. Those are roles that a positive male role model should work to teach to the next child, to the next boy, to their son, you know, and it carries a certain weight to it that makes sense because a positive male should be able to teach, you know, another male, a younger male, hey, this is how you carry yourself in a gentleman perspective, you know, and that's where a lot of toxic masculinity comes from now, because they're passing it down throughout generations. And it has to stop somewhere. And we're getting to that point with that self-awareness.
Do you think, though, because there's men out there that will say, and I've heard it, that will say, but I don't want to be some weak dude.
But that's a part of it. Yeah. That's a part of the toxic masculinity. That is 100% of it. Now, the second part of that toxic masculinity is the fact that when men lack an emotional connection, they lack that with their son. And so their son grows up with the same outlook. I went through that with my oldest son because I grew up thinking, oh, well, men don't cry. Men don't show weakness. Men don't show emotion. And so I went through a period, my son went through a period where he was following in my footsteps, where he wouldn't show emotions. He wouldn't show, you know, what he perceived as weakness, and he wouldn't cry. And I was causing my son pain by doing that. And so that was another awareness, self-awareness that I had to, you know, acknowledge and say, oh, wow, I'm directly impacting my son's life by showing him that men aren't supposed to be emotional. And so that's something we got to fix. You got to heal that too.
Yeah,
so you don't pass that on.
You know, it's interesting because my husband, we have a son, and my husband has a daughter that's a little older, and my kids are twins, and I have a son and a daughter.
That's cool.
And he's never had a son before. And he has both parents in his family, and his dad is an amazing role model and loves his mother and, you know, all the things, right? Taught him how to be a really great man. And it's interesting because, you know, but my husband also, you know, went through the military where there's a lot of, you know, suck it up and show no emotion and those types of things. Yeah.
I did 10 years in the military. I know.
Yeah. What branch did you go through?
I was in the Army.
Oh, so was he. He's going to love that. No, but so, you know, he went through a lot of that. And it was interesting because when my son was born, but like getting a little older, a few months old, I noticed him bonding a lot with my daughter. And he bonded with our son too, but it was different. And I kind of brought it up one day and said, you don't kiss Christopher the way you kiss Genevieve, you know? And I don't even think he realized it, because I don't think that he's the kind of guy who would have been like, oh yeah, well, I won't kiss my son. I just don't think that he realized it. And I mean, from this day on, he's like, I love you, buddy, and like kisses him. And they were dancing the other day. Oh yeah. They were dancing together the other day. And my son's only like 10 months old, but like they were dancing, and
that's cool though.
And I love that, really cool, because it's interesting, even with our children.
Yeah.
For some reason, I think that men get so caught up in this homophobia, homosexual, like even with their sons, which is a
Right.
weird,
Right.
strange relationship that I think that women don't really understand, because we're just this like nurturing group of people that like will just like be super
You're
affectionate,
more emotionally connected.
emotional, and connected with our children even.
Yeah.
But you know, my husband and his dad, they hug,
Mm-hmm.
and his dad will kiss him on the cheek and things like that, and they're grown men,
Right.
you know.
Right.
And I feel like that you're right, like that's just not done or not accepted
Mm-hmm.
as like a normal, quote unquote normal thing.
Right.
And Larry, I think that you were just born in the wrong generation.
Oh, I was born at that generation where things were cool and then it stopped being cool.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah, I was in the middle somewhere.
Yeah, and I think that it's amazing that you're trying to bring that back on that being a gentleman. And
Yeah.
a gentleman doesn't just mean treating a woman
Oh no.
correctly.
Right.
You know,
Right.
that a gentleman also means treating yourself with
Yeah.
self-love and loving the families around you and people around you. So kind of give me some things that men can do for themselves, because I think that self-care and self-love is a huge thing that women talk about all the time.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right.
But I don't think it's talked about as much with men.
It's not, and that's the thing. So I'll try to break this down in a three-part process. So you need to find your peace first. That's step number one. Nothing else matters until you find that. You have to find what sets you off. You have to find what knocks you out of character. You have to find what's broken, and you have to heal that. You have to fix that. And you might have to isolate yourself.
Yeah.
It is important. Whatever it takes to put yourself at a level where you can operate where nothing else throws you off, you know? So look at it like this. Imagine your purpose is a destination. That's where you need to drive, right? That's where you got to go. That's what you want to do. That's what you want to achieve. Finding your peace is like your driver's license. That lets you know, that validates that you're able to even get on the road to get to that destination.
Mm-hmm.
That validates that. So once you get your peace, once you find a purpose, the reason why you want to do things of who you are, that's the individual thing. It might take some trial and error to find it. And then once you find peace, purpose, and then you find progress. Progress is the last part of the puzzle. That's what gives you, that's the vehicle. That's what keeps you going. That's what keeps you moving forward. That's what keeps you elevated. That progress keeps you pushing yourself to be a better person, to want better, find better, be better, and have better for the people around you.
Mm-hmm.
Once you heal yourself, then you can start helping the people around you, healing the other people around you. It will start to express itself. Like you can tell when a person is happy with themselves because it just feels like they're on cloud nine. Feels like nothing is gonna knock them off, you know? And then you can feel when a person is like about to explode. Like you can feel when when a person is irritable and they just like had enough.
Mm-hmm.
And it's huge differences among those people. One is peaceful and one isn't peaceful. I read something online the other day that said there's two types of tired in the world. One tired is when you need sleep, when you need rest, and the other tired is when you need peace.
Yeah.
And so it's important. You know, the first step, find your inner peace, find what settles you, and then you can move forward from there. That's in different forms.
What kinds of things did you do to do that for yourself?
For me, I find joy in the little things that when you become self-aware, you start to see things that are in a bigger picture. Like I start to spend better, efficient time with my kids because there were times where I would be present physically, but I wasn't there mentally, you know, and that's another indirect way that you affect yourself and your kids.
Yeah.
Another thing is just find something that you're interested in, find something that motivates you, find something that will push you to be better, to be a better person. And that beats the laziness. That's where your purpose comes in.
Yeah.
My purpose is trying to help people. My purpose is trying to help men be better men, you know, just to find that mental awareness because I didn't have any of this motivation or direction or guidance. And the hardest part of that for me was putting it together by myself.
Yeah.
Lot of trial and error throughout the years, and getting to this point to where I am now, where I'm saying, okay, I want to take all the teachings and the lessons, the things I've learned, and I want to help other people so they don't follow in the same mistakes, that I did, especially for my kids, especially for my children. Real quick though, one of the things that started the Modified Gentleman was I wanted to write a book for my daughters, because I have 2 older daughters. And I wanted to write a book to my daughters that were explaining them to watch out for guys.
Yeah.
That was me just being an overprotective dad.
Sure.
And the book was just, watch out for guys and this type of behavior if they try to take advantage of you. And then once I moved past that phase, I had my sons. And so the book kind of transformed into, don't be that guy. Yeah. Don't be that type of guy that, is emotional. Takes advantage of, people emotional or has the bad behaviors. And then once I got past that, it became just be a better overall person, just be a better man overall. So,
I love that we're talking about this too. And we're talking a lot about the relationship standpoint of it, but I love that we're talking about that in October because it's Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
It is.
And that is something that's near and dear to me. And I think that as women too, we need to stop this whole nice guys finish last thing. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. Women always say, I want a nice guy, but for some reason, a lot of us go after these quote unquote bad boys. And bad boys meaning they treat us poorly.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not talking about just like putting on a leather jacket and going on your motorcycle. I'm talking about treating you like you don't matter, treating you like you're not worth anything.
Yeah.
And so like it comes to support from both sides, right? Women need to support men on being gentlemen and being good people, because that's really what we want as fathers, as husbands, as role models for our kids and for our families. But we don't support men on being those things because a lot of women go, I'm going to continue to date the guy who's a jerk. I'm going to continue to put out there that these nice guys are just too nice. They're quote unquote friend zoned, which I don't even understand what the friend zone is. Like, that's not even a real thing for me. Like, it's either like I'm interested in you or I'm not interested in you. Like friend zone is just not a real thing, you people out there. But, I think it comes from support with both sides, because there's women, they complain and complain and complain about how there's no nice guys out there. But like, we also have to support men on being these nice people. And when men are trying to better themselves, we can't beat them down for that. I think that's important.
I went through that nice guy phase because, like I said, my mother raised me to be that guy. My mother raised me to be the respectable guy. Pull out a chair for a woman before she sits down. That type of thing. But I went through the phase where I was finishing last.
Yeah.
I was the boring guy. I was the guy who was predictable. And then I turned into a jerk. And then that's when I started getting more attention from women as the jerk. Imagine that.
I know.
And so toxic masculinity just festers. Yeah. And so we can get it from that direction too. Men can become toxic from the other side, from women. But a lot of that plays a part with just women not having a good foundation of themselves at first.
Sure, absolutely.
That's one thing that I would say the guy is kind of the scapegoat in that situation. Because if a woman who's not found a foundation of where she comes in her status, her beliefs, things in her standards and beliefs, and what makes her, just kind of an unattainable woman, because she puts herself in a higher status. And it makes it seem like no guy would ever be good enough, or the bad guy is always the right one for that situation, or the perfect one. that's a tough play.
Yeah.
A lot of that is women finding healing in themselves first
Yes.
before you bring somebody else into your
Yes.
equation.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that maturity and life and all of those things have to play a part in it. I think that women, I think it's a vicious cycle. You know,
Yeah.
women, they, it's a possibility, and I'll speak from my experience. I don't want to speak for other people, but I
Mhm.
know for myself, I was that person. I was that girl, that woman. Okay. I picked the most toxic guys. Okay.
Yeah.
And my dad was an amazing person.
Right.
So it didn't come from my father.
It wasn't a daddy issue.
No, it was not a daddy issue. And for so many years of my life, I was like, I don't have daddy issues. My dad is a great man. He's
So what do you
always,
think? What do you think it was?
well, I know what it was. And I had some things happen to me when I was a young kid.
Okay. Okay.
But, and there were people, there were people who treated me like I should accept and think that the toxicity was normal. Okay.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
when I grew up, and it didn't come from my dad, so and that's what people only always focus on is it's my
Mhm.
father, it's my dad, or my father figure. And it can be other figures in your life too.
Yeah, you're right. You're
And
right.
so when I went through life, I'm a super caring, genuine, loving, giving
Mhm.
individual to where I just don't treat people poorly. Like
Right.
I was just brought up with better morals and values than that.
Yes.
So when I went through, you know, young adulthood and life, I always picked these guys, and not every single person. Okay.
Mhm.
But I was the girl who the nice guy was boring and not exciting and didn't like spark my interest and all those things.
Right.
And I lost, you know, and they're happy and everything else now, but there were boyfriends in my life who were really great people that probably could have had a chance, but I was not in the place where I could have given them a chance.
Right. Right.
And so
Right.
when I got into adulthood, I got into a relationship with a man who I ended up marrying, but he was extremely abusive. He
Okay.
was abusive in all ways you can be abusive.
Mhm.
And it's incredible because I am such a strong person. I would have never ever imagined in my whole life that I would have ever fell into a relationship like this.
Right.
Not only that, but I was a police officer and I went and I dealt with situations like this, like taking people to
Mm.
jail in this
Wow.
sense. Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
And so, you know, I couldn't even fathom it would happen to me. And after the situation happened, I even have said to myself, like, I'm just not that person. Like, I can't even believe this happened to me. So
Right.
really, it can happen to anybody.
Anybody.
You know what I mean?
Anybody.
And
Yep.
I thought, and after that relationship, I really dug deep into myself. And I said to myself, what about me
Yeah.
is like, why does this keep happening? Like, what is going on? What about me is drawing these people to me, or why do I keep picking them?
Mm.
And
That's the
yeah,
key.
yeah. And what am I doing to where I can change this? Because in my
Right.
whole life, I've always said, I want the super nice guy. I want
Right.
the genuinely nice person, but I keep picking the opposite.
Mhm.
And so for 3 years, I was single and I was great. I was
Oh
like
yeah.
I was the happiest I'd ever been.
Found your inner peace.
Oh my gosh, people would make fun of me. I had friends that would make fun of me because I would sit at home by myself with my dog watching Disney movies.
Listen,
I was like that.
that is some of the best
It
time.
was
I do that nowadays.
it was the greatest. And you know
Yeah.
what I did? I was finally ready to start dating,
Okay.
but I knew what I was worth. And
Yes.
I said to myself, if someone brings any sort of toxicity to me, I will just be done. I'm okay with that. I'm okay
Good.
with being alone. I don't need to be in a relationship. I want to be in a relationship.
Good.
And I'm okay with being alone. I'm good. I'm happy. I don't need to have a boyfriend.
Right.
Okay. And I had always been the girl who was like, I love having a boyfriend. I love that companionship, which I really do. But I realized as an adult, I don't need it.
Yeah.
I had it with my dog.
Right.
My dog was my
Right.
companion. And then soon after, I met my now husband,
Mhm.
who I wouldn't give the time of day. Because I was at first, listen to this, it was interesting because at first I was like, he's too nice.
Ah,
Okay.
yeah,
I was like,
yeah,
this is so weird. I'm so not used to this because old Mia came back and that this isn't normal
yeah.
stuff started to play in.
True,
And
true.
I was like, this isn't normal. And then I thank God for social media because I stalked the crap out of him.
Oh,
I went into social media and I saw all of the inspiring things he was about
that's good.
without a
Yeah,
girlfriend, by
right.
himself, how he uplifted people. And I was like, you know what? I'm that way. He's that way. I want to get to know this guy better. But it
True.
really took me figuring out who I am
Yep.
to be able to find another person that aligns with that. And you know what? He is one of
Yeah.
the nice guys. He is. And thank God, because I would have never found, I would have maybe gotten married again or had kids with somebody that would have been one of those bad boys and it would have never worked out.
Right, right. And that's a cycle.
Yeah, it's the
It repeats itself.
cycle.
Yep, definitely. So you did the work.
Oh my God.
You
But it took
did
a
the
long time.
yeah, but that's the thing. It just there's some things I'm writing right now in the book, The Modified Gentleman. And one of the things I detail and I outline is the fact that the hardest battles you're going to fight are always going to be your internal battles.
Yeah.
But once you win those battles, you find a newfound respect for yourself that you've earned that
Yes.
cannot be taken away by anyone. And this is the
Yes.
part of why healing is so important because you find that inner peace where it's internal and anything that's external will not be able to shake you. Anything that's
Absolutely.
external won't be able to break you. And so, just like you said, how you found you weren't dating for 3 years, you were peaceful, just sitting at the house, relaxing.
That was good.
And when you did decide to date someone, it wasn't a need.
Yes.
It was because you were ready. It was because you didn't make it a need. It was an option. It was like, okay, I can do this, but I don't really have to. I'm not losing anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the best part about healing is when you realize that finding that self-sustaining piece, self-sustaining. There are a lot of people out here that repeat that cycle because they're used to having that comfort zone of a relationship. And whether it be toxic or it be just boring for them,
Mm-hmm.
they stay in it because it's comfortable.
Yep.
But once you realize that, hey, once you became self-aware that this isn't working for me, and then you decided to make the choice, the hard choice, to want better for yourself and go after it, to
Yes.
implement that action. And that is so important. That's where I want to take men nowadays. That's why I want to take men with the modified gentleman concept. That is it 100% is finding where you are in yourself, whether it's those external sources that are impacting you, those internal sources. Find that, settle that, find yourself, find your peace, and then move forward. Then you start moving forward with your life. Things get better. Like who cares if it's Monday? A lot of people complain about Mondays. They're like, whatever. I don't care about Mondays. Mondays
Yeah.
don't matter to me. It's
Mm-hmm.
just another day of the week.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so relaxed and just carefree. I'm happy. I got a lot of things moving in life that feel good
Mm-hmm.
because I'm settled with myself,
Yeah.
you know?
I
And
think that
you
that's
do the
the
same
key.
thing.
I think that's the key is find things that feel good to you. Like that
Yes,
is so important. And I think that people forget about that,
they do.
which is crazy because it seems very obvious. But we forget that what makes me to my core, the person I really am, feel good.
Right.
And I think that when we do that and we mature and get older, I swear to God, I'll tell my kids, don't marry until you're 30. But of course, that will be like, I didn't do,
Well,
I didn't do that. So,
one
that'll
thing
be the thing.
about one thing about age and maturity is the fact that age doesn't validate maturity, right?
Yes.
Maturity is basically all about experience.
Yes. It's
And
experience.
it is.
Yes.
And that's why you have just for example, you have managers that are like 22, 23 years old and people working for them are like 35,
Mm-hmm.
36, because we're talking about experience. They have experience in their position, in their job, what they're doing, that aspect. But, you know, the older person, we just can't, just because they're older doesn't mean they know what they're doing.
Very true.
And so that plays a
100%.
lot with our lives in general.
Yeah.
We just, you know, you can't get caught up on, oh, just because you're a certain age, you know how this works.
Just
no,
live.
it doesn't.
Just live a little, you know, have those
exactly.
experiences because they're important to mature. But I think that, you know, going back with trying to figure out how to be the best version of yourself is that I think is the key to really get into good, healthy relationships too, because we always say, and you see this all over social media, what does that person have to offer me? What does that person have to offer me? What have they accomplished? What have they accomplished personally, emotionally, all these things? But why are we not saying like, this is what I have to offer? We get so caught up on what the other person has to offer. We don't really look and go, am I worthy to ask that of someone?
Well, the thing with that is once we get to a point with relationships, now this is the tricky part that a lot of people skip, is the fact that they're in relationships, they stay in relationships because they don't know how to be happy by themselves.
Yes.
So once you find, you know, I know we talk a lot about inner peace, but that is it's huge.
Yes.
Once you find what makes you comfortable, what makes you happy, what makes you tick.
Yes.
And then you get into a relationship, that other person should be able to add to your life. You know, not drain you. You should be able to add to their life, not drain them. And so when that other relationship kicks in, it's like, hey, you know, I don't need this, but I can have it type of thing, because you feed off each other. It's like you bounce off each other, but that person don't drain you. And so it's important when a person is comfortable with themselves.
Yes.
If you can't be comfortable with yourself, what makes you think, you know, another person is going to make you happy?
Exactly. And not just comfortable, but do you have anything for yourself? Do you have hobbies and goals and ambitions and those types of things? These are very attractive to another person, you know, men or women. Those are very attractive. And I think that as, you know, being a younger person, there could be things that, and it's okay to evolve. It's okay to evolve, and your dreams and goals change, and you know, it's all applicable. But I think that that's a very attractive thing to know who you are, because then your nice guy type personality only enhances you as a person. That is the cherry on top of the sundae to go, not only is this man successful with whatever that means. That doesn't necessarily mean monetary. That doesn't necessarily mean money. They're successful because they're happy with what they're doing. You know, success comes in all kinds of different ways.
Right, exactly.
Successful, whether they're emotionally stable, whether or not they can take care of themselves, that comes in all different kinds of ways too.
That's a requirement.
Yes, you know what I mean? Do they have things they love, enjoy, hobbies? Is there something about them that makes them special? You know, like for instance, my husband works on cars. I'm not that into cars. Like I'm just not. But the spark that he gets when he works on cars is such an attractive quality about somebody.
That's good. That's good. Yes.
And it might not be my hobby, but I love that he has his own things that make him a person, that make him who he is. And you know what? You don't have to love everything about the other person, and you can choose that person's not for me, or that doesn't have to be my hobby, but I would love to learn about it or enjoy it with you.
Right. Now, if someone else's hobbies and interests sparks an interest in you because, you know, they expose you to something new, I mean, that's also good. I mean, I'm sure you still have your common things that you have that you both love too.
Yep.
And that's one of the episodes that in one of the podcast episodes for the Modified Gentleman, we talk about evaluating your needs, men evaluating their professional needs and their personal needs, you know, when they decide to go get into a relationship, is the fact that it's nice to find a partner or a spouse who at least shares both personal and professional needs with you, because you both can evolve with that together. You're both starting at the same point together in the same interest. Because if there's interests or there's no interest within something that you guys, don't get along with,
Yeah.
you're going to have some conflicts.
Yeah.
I mean, they say opposites attract, but when you have things in common, it's a lot easier to start
It
from there and go.
is. It is. It's funny about that, and I always kind of lived by that mantra, but I swear to
Yeah.
God, my husband and I are the same person.
That's good though. That's good. I mean,
We
that's
laugh at the
good.
same stuff, we have the same humor. Like
That goes so much
it
longer.
it
It
does.
works.
It does. And I think that the people who, may be different and may not work out, that's
Mhm.
okay. Just because you don't work out, that might just not be your person,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
and that's all
Exactly.
right,
Yep.
you
Yep.
know?
But
So
the key to that though is knowing what you like first.
exactly, right,
That's the key. The
right.
key is knowing what do you like professionally, what do you like personally.
Yes.
Because you wouldn't expect another person to come in and just completely change up all your likes, all your
Yep.
wants and
Yep.
needs.
Yep.
Then it would suck after that. You would
You
know who you
know,
are.
and it can get harmful when you only take on the interests of the other person.
Oh yeah, you just
It really
I don't.
can. It can be
Yeah,
harmful because
it's
you
very
lose
humble.
you lose who you are. You don't know who you are, and that
Yes,
is harmful in itself. When you
very.
become someone else's clone, when you become someone else's
Yeah,
double, I mean it you lose your identity.
yeah. I had this quote from the modified gentleman that says, "Trying to fit in is a form of suicide."
Mhm.
That's you got to be careful of that. And
Mhm.
trying to fit in, and it, when you're trying to make somebody else happy, you know, because you don't know what makes you happy, and that's where you start losing yourself
Right.
a lot when you start living for other people,
Right.
and it's not a good way.
Yeah.
Definitely not a good way.
So tell me how the struggles and how difficult it is for men to balance all of these things as far as professional, personal, and even fatherhood.
Oh, okay. Professional thing. Let me hit professional first because that's one of the easiest things that we can do. Men love what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Men love their jobs. Men love just basic things. If we want to go fishing, we'll go fishing. If we want to go sit in the boardroom and talk about stocks, we'll go do that because we're linear. We go from point A to point B, and so we don't we love doing things that doesn't take as much brain power. Put it that way, and not not a lot of emotion.
Yeah.
That
Mm-hmm.
comes easy to us.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to personal stuff, that's where things get tricky. You know, um, but a lot of that comes with trying to heal those things that make you not want to be personal.
Yeah.
There's something that cause you to cut off emotions, something that maybe some trauma, some
Mm-hmm.
unhealed, unresolved issue that's like, oh man, I don't want to get close to that. you know and the thing is, you got to face it. You can't run away from it. You can't get used to escaping it. And so
Do you have any suggestions for, I don't know if coping
mhm.
mechanisms is the right way to put it,
Ooh,
but do you
yes,
have any suggestions for people who are trying to face those things, to
yes,
become more emotional and to kind of break themselves down to let up those barriers?
yes. So and it's probably different for a lot of people, but it all comes down to finding a purpose. And when I know that's vague, it's really vague, but it is so important. The purpose could be that finding something that drives your passion,
Mm-hmm.
something that makes you get up in the morning, something that makes you say, I don't want to quit. I don't want to give up. There is, for each person, they have to find that for themselves. Like I said, it sounds vague, but it's the fact that it's an individual aspect. And then once you do that, then everything else, the details. Okay, how do I iron out finding that purpose, working on that purpose? Do I have to put in the time? Do I have to learn certain skills? Do I have to take certain classes, talk to certain people? That is the footwork, the groundwork. That is what needs to be done. The purpose is that's why you wake up and say, hey, my purpose, I want to help people be a better person, be the better version of themselves. So that's when I get out. You fill in the details, podcasts, social media, write books, all of that stuff, the details. And so and I feel passionate about that stuff. I like doing that stuff.
Yeah.
So the key to that is finding something that you can pour your energy into, finding that thing that sparks that creativity in you. And it's different for each person. They're going to have to dig. They're going to have to take that time. The hard part is taking that time to find out what that is.
Yeah. Do you think that can help with breaking down those barriers for being emotional in your relationships, even with friends, family, romantic relationships? But do you think that a lot of it too comes from, addressing, do I have traumas? Was there something going on that seemed normal to me growing up that is just not serving me as an adult?
Yeah. And that's another hard part too, is the fact that trying to recognize your own trauma
it's hard.
It is crazy.
Yeah.
It is wild. I found out when I was 36, I'm almost 40 now. When I was 35, I found out that I was actually sexually assaulted when I was 23 by a woman. And I didn't know it.
Yeah.
Because toxic masculinity told me that it was fine. It was okay. But now when at 35, I was like, oh, wow, that really happened to me.
Do you think that caused issues with women?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Because it just gave me a different type of mental masculine complex.
Yeah.
And I've spoken with women who are now older women who are going through their own self-awareness and finding out that they had some traumas too. And they're coming to terms with it. Because the way trauma works is that we go through it at a younger age and we don't recognize it, because we're not well versed in it. We're not educated in it. There's a type of ignorance of not knowing, of unawareness. Once we get older, life happens. We learn things. We learn from other people's experiences, and we're like, hey, you know what? I went through that too. And then we start learning from that. We start getting that self-awareness and recognizing, okay, I got to do some healing. I got to go, find out what's going on with me. And there are lots of fragmented parts in our lives that we try to, put the pieces together as best as we can. The hardest part is doing it by yourself.
It is.
That's the hardest part, is saying, oh man, I went through some trauma when I was younger. I recognize it as an adult. However, as an adult, it is 100% your responsibility.
Yes.
To fix that, though. You cannot rely on anyone else. It's 100% your responsibility.
And if you don't, you can't blame anyone else.
No, you can't. You can't. You have to take responsibility.
It is 100% people's responsibility to take care of themselves, and 100% the responsibility to dig deeper within themselves and be aware of the things that go on. And it's interesting that you mentioned that when you were 25, because I think that happens to men a lot. I think it happens a lot more than people want to talk about. I worked in law enforcement. I talked to a lot of men that it happened to. That sexual assault plus domestic violence, lots of things that happen to men that just don't get brought to light, and they don't get talked about, because it's always said, like with domestic violence, it's always said, oh, that little girl hit you, that little tiny 5 foot, 2 woman, she beat on you. But you know what? There's lots of men out there who won't hit a woman back. And so, if someone is going to hit you, they're going to hit you and hit you and hit you. And then if a man strikes back, the man is the abuser. And it's, there's a lot of that mentality. And it scares me for my son to think that, that's the kind of society that is being the norm, or sexual assault with men. I believe that if someone doesn't have the ability to say no, then it is an assumed no.
Well, and you're right. But also another thing about that too, for men who have sexual assault situations, with women, men who are sexually assaulted, is the fact that the toxic masculinity of that is the fact that men are taught to accept, these sexual advances from women.
Always.
We are taught that if
you don't, if you don't, you're gay or you don't like women or
Right.
whatever it
They're
is.
shunned for it, or they're
Yes.
told that,
You're not a
this is,
man.
they normalize it.
Yes.
And that's another part of the toxic masculinity that sneaks into our lives. And we
Yes.
grow up with that.
Yes.
We grow up with that. It's not just locker room talk, man. It happens so
Yes.
much.
Yes. And you know what? That's why I absolutely despise when people say to my son, because my son's a cutie pie, I hate when they say he's going to be a heartbreaker. I hate it.
Oh, yeah.
It's the worst thing that I hear.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because no, he won't be.
Right. Right. There you go. Exactly.
And that will not be brought up with him through his whole life, that he is
Mm-hmm.
going to hurt women or break hearts or this or that. And I know it's
None of
people
that.
say it because it's a cutesy thing to say, but it's not, just like my daughter is also going to be told that she's intelligent and that she is smart and that she is creative and not just beautiful, because she is beautiful. But we're not going to just focus on those things. And I think that you're right. That is normalized with men, that if you don't take a sexual advance from a woman, there's something wrong with you.
There's something wrong. Yeah.
And it's just not that way.
It's not at all. It is not. But that plays into the culture, this gender culture that, I mean, it's been going on for, I can't tell you how long, but that happens in the boardrooms and
it does.
At the top, is at the highest level. At the top, men just look at each other like I said before, we have a superiority complex, and that breeds into the toxic masculinity, and it goes down the chain and up the chain. It's all around. But the thing about that is becoming aware of it, so you can stop it. And with you being aware of, how people address your kids, how people address your son and your daughter, and you're like, no, we're not gonna go that route. Mm-hmm. That is how you stop that, from the get-go, nip it in the bud. And that's important. But the problem is so many men just never had that guidance, never had that direction, never had that mentorship. And it's crucial that we start putting that out there and helping each other. We do have to help each other heal in certain aspects. As a society, as a culture, it has to happen.
Yeah.
Because, we do have to heal individually, and then we have to heal together as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Because, I hear all the time, we are raising our sons to be sissies. We're raising our sons to not be men. Right. And what do you say to that? Because I think that people are confusing weakness with emotions.
Yeah. People who say that are not even connected emotionally, honestly. I went through a phase like that when I was younger, and it was just like, when my son was like 6-7 months old, he would cry a lot, and I was like, oh, what's going on, And I would talk to his mom, like, are you being too lenient on him, things like that. And it's like, that was just the wrong parental guidance, because I wasn't connected, I wasn't aware, because I went through that when I was a kid. I got those type of emotions was passed down to me. And I didn't recognize it, that I needed to stop it, because that's all I knew, And when you become self-aware, you become self-aware of other people's feelings. You become more empathetic, and you start to feed off of that emotional energy. And it's like, okay, the type of person I am is affecting, X, Y, Z, or affecting my child or my spouse. Mm-hmm. Like, it's that common denominator. And then you start realizing, okay, I got to make some changes in myself. Yeah. Because if not, I'm gonna hit a brick wall somewhere.
I think empathy is something that there's a lot of people that don't have it, which
you're right.
Which I think is strange to me, but it's something that I think that we should teach kids. And especially, when you talk about the male superiority type mentality of not being, because really it's all about being empathetic to the way you're treating people and the people's feelings around you and what they might feel if you act a certain way or whatever. Right. And women are just as guilty.
Yeah.
But I think it does come down to empathy. And I think it does come down to, and it's interesting with, a boy and a girl. Mm-hmm. Why is it that with a baby, right? Like a 10-month-old. Why is it that we will run to a little girl's side when they cry, but not to a little boy's side? And, you know, they're still humans.
Yeah.
They're still humans. They still
Right.
have feelings. And I believe in teaching kids, people, mental toughness.
Right.
However, that doesn't mean that emotions should not be expressed.
Well, okay. All right. I'll break it down to you like this. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Whew. Okay. So the way that we are taught, raised, and brought up between men and women, it conflicts with each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way society has conditioned us. So let's say you take a girl, you know, a female child, and she's taught to, you know, play with doll babies and have a baby carriage and, you know, a baby stroller, have tea parties with her stuffed animals. And she can tell you what each stuffed animal sitting at the table is thinking about because she's
Uh-huh.
emotionally connected to them. She can tell you, some teddy bears having a bad day or some doll babies having a good day because she's emotionally connected with that. Now you take a boy, take a child boy, and he's playing, you know, cops and robbers, cowboys and Indians, or playing with Voltron or, you know, Thundercats or Ninja Turtles or something. And what he's playing with is toys who fight each other all the time. It's always fight, 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 or it's a disconnect of, it's a disconnect of that emotion, or it's an aggressive, or it's a violent emotional technique. And you take that and you multiply that by, 10, 20, 30 years. They're an adult. They're still emotionally disconnected. But you take the woman who's been connected her entire life. They don't go together. There's a conflict.
Which
They
is
don't.
like, people are like, how come men and women don't understand each other? Hello?
That's why.
That's
That is 100%
why.
why.
Yes.
We've been taught that way, and then men get up, into an older age, and whether they've been through the military. That, like I said, I've been 10 years in the Army, and it is rampant as far as suck it up and drive on. That
Yes.
is the motto. And no matter what it is, even for women,
Mm-hmm.
even for women. But it's just the fact that you take that mentality and you apply that, their whole lives, and then they get married and the relationship doesn't work out because they connected, on a surface level emotion. And then when things really hit the fan, I'm gonna say when the fecal matter hits the oscillator,
Yeah.
then things hit the fan and it's time to emotionally connect seriously for an issue, then men have trouble doing
Yeah.
that. Been through that. I've been there. I've done that. And like I said, a lot of that that's a part of the healing, from the masculine approach, from the masculine perception.
So that is, I mean, it's kind of mind
Ah,
blowing. It really is. Like, it's kind of
when
mind
you
blowing.
look at it like
When
that,
you look at it like that, it really is, because it's like, you think about that situation that you said about the little boy with the fighting stuff all
yeah,
the time. And it's funny because, like, when, the Ninja Turtles fight the bad guys, and I'm showing my age too, but when the Ninja Turtles fight the bad guys, the Ninja Turtles don't cry when they get kicked in the face.
no Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers, none of that,
You know what I
none
mean?
of
And
that.
that's a really interesting way to look at it, that, the little girl,
Mental,
she
it's a
she
mental
plays with a baby
toughness.
who cries, who understands emotion. I mean, we're really conditioning
Yes,
emotions.
yes,
The baby
yes.
cries, and then you go to the baby and you make the baby feel
Yep.
better, and all these other things. I saw this, I think it was a post on social media one time, where it was a little boy, and I think it was something that said, those of you who say that me letting my little boy play with baby dolls, it's going to make him weak.
Mhm.
No, it's going to make him a good father, a good uncle, a good pediatrician, a good,
That's awesome. That's
brother.
that is awesome.
And
And
I
that is
love
how you
that.
give the proper mentorship in the right direction.
Yes, I
That is
love it.
that is what you posted. That is how it's done.
Yes, I love it. Like that, to me, it was like, oh my God, yes. A good
Right?
husband, a good, I was like, yes,
Yep. Exactly.
100%. It was women, we want these men to be this way, but
Yep.
we're not
Yep.
raising our men to be this way.
Exactly. Exactly.
It kind of seems wild when you think
Makes
about
sense now.
it.
Makes
It does
sense.
make sense. So when you talk about working with these stressors that accumulate and accumulate, do you
Yeah.
suggest, men going to other men and talking to them and finding support with friends and family members that are other men.
Yeah, that's important. The thing is being grounded, within your masculine environment, within
Yeah.
that male environment, because we have to have the way it looks like. It should be like this. Everyone is in the middle of the road. So we should look towards mentors who are a little further ahead of us, that ones that we can go and talk to for guidance. And they teach us and tell us what we need. And then there should be people who are a little further behind us that we can continue passing that
Right.
knowledge on.
Yeah.
That's how you create a positive cycle.
Yeah.
That's where you want. And I mean, that's not just, for men, that should be how it should be for everyone.
Right. Yeah.
Everyone is on the same road. We just at different mile markers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you want to try to help people who are a little behind you. But it's important to find your tribe that you can, express yourself with. And that's the concept of the modified gentleman, is that guys can come there and talk without no judgment, learn from each other, but most importantly, hold each other accountable, because the accountability is also extremely important, because
yes.
you just can't do foolish things without consequences.
Yes. No, I love that so much. Like, I love that concept so much. And the best part about it is that there's no judgment. You can go there and you can literally talk openly and just like find your people. And you know what, guys, like, don't be afraid of this. Like, this is not something that makes you less of a man. Remember, that's part of the culture that we were trying to heal and break.
Yeah.
It doesn't make you less of a man. It actually makes you more of a mature man.
Definitely.
And a gentleman.
Definitely.
And somebody that we want as a friend and a husband and a father to our children, from a woman's perspective. Right. Because if a woman doesn't want that from you and a woman doesn't push you to be that man, they're not the right woman.
Right, exactly.
There are lots of women out there who don't know themselves, like we talked about before. Yeah. They're not mature in their own lives. They're doing the same things that it's highlighted within men, mm-hmm. that they're toxic and bring you down and all that kind of stuff. Women do it to men too. And so if you don't have a woman who is out there pushing you to be the best version of yourself, maybe mm-hmm. they're not the right person. And maybe if you notice that within somebody in your own life or your relationship, you can say to them, hey, let's try to do this together. Because obviously there's some disconnect here. And obviously, like, I want you to be a better person. I want you to want me to be a better person. Like, let's do this together for our kids, for our marriage, for our relationships, for our families, whatever it may be. Push each other to be better. And if the other person in your life is not doing that for you, it really comes down to what you want.
Once you find the things you like, the things that make you comfortable, and you start noticing how it affects the people around you, you become a better team player.
Yeah.
Because it's not about you anymore. It's about, how can I make things better? How can I, contribute? And this is where a part of the modified gentleman gets into building a legacy. Because men need to get to that point to where they become, prosperous. And that's another subject we're working on here at the Modified Gentleman. It's called Survive, Provide, and Prosperous. We go through our lives learning how to survive and just learn how to get through our days. And then we get to a point to where we become providers, whether it be for our family or our community. And then we get to a point where we learn how to prosper, where we can grow as a whole. And so that's kind of a three-step process of how I feel that a lot of people should just look at life generally, because we don't want to get stuck in survival mode. Survival mode is damaging if you're in there too long. And then you got to learn how to provide. It's not about you. It's about everybody. It's about how can you help other people become better? And then you get to a point where everyone is prospering as a whole. So it works. It works.
I really love this. You need to write a book.
I'm working on it.
You need to hold webinars. You need to do all kinds of things. Like, this is really something that I think that as a society we need, as individuals we need.
Right.
I think that, there's a lot of, okay, so I'm a big one of these, but there's a lot of women who don't know what resources there are for their husbands in relationships, or their boyfriends in relationships, and they go to counseling, go to a therapist, talk to a therapist, and
Yeah.
I've been a big one
Yeah.
of those, because I don't know what else to,
Right.
when there's things that are issues from past and things, that's my first go-to, because that's how I was raised and that's how I've coped with things. But I think that to have a group of men,
Yeah.
to be able to come together and talk about these things, it's almost like a group therapy type thing,
It is.
without the judgment, with the accountability. I think that that is so needed. I think that it
It's
is,
definitely
and
needed.
it's needed. And I'm not even a man. And I know, just from having a brother, having,
Yeah.
relationships, working with men, I worked in a male dominated field, and they told me everything and everything, anything and everything.
Yeah.
And, I saw it all the time.
Well,
And,
the,
there's a lot of men out there who are very mature and self-aware, but there are men that are struggling. And I think that it's
a lot.
so needed.
The problem is that there's tons of resources to help women recover
There
from
is.
like toxic masculinity. Tons of
Yes.
resources, but there's minimal resources to help men just not become toxic.
Yeah.
So we're trying to quell that. We're trying to get in the process of, hey, we gotta, put a stop to this,
Well,
and we gotta help each other.
and I think the reason for that is because there's so many people that are afraid of, oh, you're just trying to make me weak. That's a societal thing. Trying to
Yeah.
make me weak. You're just trying to make me less of a man. All these other things that people think. But, where are the resources for the mother with the 17-year-old boy who's struggling with this
Yes.
stuff?
Right.
Where are
Right.
the resources for
Yeah.
the, teacher that is trying to help the single mother figure
Yeah.
out, like, what to do? It would have been a great thing for me at my job to be able to go, this is something that maybe you could look into, or
Yeah.
talk about, because I think there's a lot of men that need this and want this help. They just don't want to take their quote unquote man card away. And I think that that's what
Yeah.
is like the mentality of,
That's a
like,
part of the problem.
I know it's taking my man card away. And it's like,
Yeah.
or is it making you more of a man?
The thing is, and
You
I'm glad you
know?
brought up too. I'm glad you brought up about a single mom trying to raise a boy, because that's important. Because the way I fell through with the same, I fell through the cracks with that same thing, because, like I said, my mother raised me to be respectful. However, once I left my mom's house
Yeah.
and I got into society
Yes.
and I got into a manhood,
Yes.
and you just get swallowed up by
Yes.
that masculine. It's a huge, like, it's an iceberg.
Yes.
I mean, it's huge. You see the tip of it, but once you get involved, like, you start realizing how crazy things are. Just being a man and just talking to each other. I mean, just simple conversation. Guys say things that is just like, did he really just say that? Like, yeah, he said that.
Yeah.
Once you become aware of it, but it's just the fact that it's so normalized.
It's so
Um,
normalized.
it is. It is. And people say it just like, like they're talking about the weather.
I know.
So,
It's
but
so normal, and it's
yeah,
strange.
but the problem is we gotta deal with that and find, there's real strength in being honest with yourself.
Hmm.
There's strength in being truthful with yourself, and there's strength in knowing that there are things that make you uncomfortable, not fearful, but things that make you uncomfortable, and learning how to deal with them. Like, when you talk about how, men think that doing something is going to make them homophobic.
Hmm.
That's a fear. That's an embedded fear from, toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you have to educate yourself. You have to find that knowledge. You have to find, the resources out there. And like I said, they're minimal. We're working on
Yeah.
it. But you have to find those things out there and educate yourself to make you stronger, to
Hmm.
make you mentally stronger.
Right.
Mentally stronger. There's things that say, hey, if a man kisses his son on the forehead, that's like homophobic. Like,
right.
what?
Right.
And I went through those phases.
Yeah.
I went through those phases with my son, because I went through, when I was a kid, my dad, I don't remember my dad saying, I love you on a regular basis, or giving me a kiss or a hug. And so when I grew up, I carried that on.
Right.
But, reaching a point where I become self-aware now, I've completely changed that up for my generation, for my bloodline, for my legacy.
Yeah.
I want my son to know, hey, daddy can love you. Daddy's emotionally connected with you.
Right. Right.
And it's so important. It's so important.
And it doesn't make him any less of a man, you any less of a man. Like, it's just, if we're trying to like play this game where men don't feel feelings and aren't emotional, like, we're just lying to ourselves. Like, we're just
really
lying.
We really are. And
because
the way you can see that the most way that comes out is when that man loses his cool, whether he's in a relationship with a female and he gets extremely jealous. That's because, he had it bottled up so much. And when it explodes, those guys are usually the most emotional ones. But if they've been choking down those emotions for so long, man, the pressure just bursts the pipes and it just explodes.
Yep.
Yeah, so we got to learn how to start handling that before it gets to that point.
Yeah.
It's important.
I love that so much. Larry, you are this incredible person, and I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to meet. No, seriously, I love it. And I will catch up and try to figure out what you're doing with all these things, writing the book. And I think you should do webinars and all kinds of other things.
I'm working on it.
Let me know, because I will push it out. And I think that's a really important thing. I love giving people motivation, positivity, inspiration for their lives. And I am 100% in on pushing those things out to people, because I just want the same. I want to help, and I want people to help themselves. And I want us to be better as a whole in society, as a world. Why is that not our goal, really? So
distractions.
So please, like, let me know all the things that you're doing, and I will push all of that out. And you guys, everybody, please go check him out. It's the Modified Gentleman Podcast.
Thank you.
Really amazing things. And he's on Instagram. I don't know if you're on Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook's up and running.
Okay, so he definitely on Instagram,
same
though.
name.
And it's really awesome because, through his stuff, he has all kinds of really inspirational quotes. I love that. I love reading all your quotes. It's super insightful. And it's one guy teaching another guy. It's not some woman trying to tell you how to live your life. It's a man who's gone through it, that has life experience, that has learned from his experiences and become a better person. Let him help you, and you guys help each other. I love it so much. Larry, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for the opportunity. I love what you're doing too. And it's great. People like this have to feed off each other so we can help everybody.
Yes, absolutely. I appreciate it. And everybody, please go to Ask a Little, Tell a Little, and like and subscribe to keep updated on new episodes.